Hello there, Internet and you amazing creatures of the beyond. So, last time we talked about some interesting ways to make animation, and somebody saw actually, a friend of mine saw that video and told me of a different software which you can achieve some very amazing animation things. And we will get to that in a moment. But first, let me try to elaborate something that you cannot do in Inkscape. And that is, for example, let's do, I don't know, a line. So now, right now we have two anchor points, two nodes, and this curve, this line in the middle. Now, if we're gonna do another line over here, actually it doesn't matter how it looks. We can make it however we wish. But let's say they're like this, correctly? So now, what if we want to introduce a new node over here and take this node and this node, so select them together and combine them into one. Hmm. Hmm. Well, unfortunately, we cannot. We can only combine nodes like this. And even if we want to do something crazy like this, let's say we make an internal node in the middle and try to combine these two, again, nothing happens. And that is because Inkscape is built this way. And it, for most people, it doesn't make much sense to do this. But when it comes to animations, that's an entirely different beast. So in comes VPaint, which at the first glance, they even say it's an experimental prototype based on vector graphics complex technology developed by collaboration, blah, 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 blah. And they say that it's considered a beta and it will always remain a beta, this version of this software, and it's open source. And it's expected to have limitations, and you will have some crashes sometimes, it's unavoidable. But they are also developing two other softwares based on what they learned from VPaint, called VCG Illustrator and Animation. And we'll look to that in a moment. But just let's look at what it has. So it has free sketch form, sculpting, painting, animation, and onion skinning. So this already from the beginning has quite a bit of tools to do some very interesting things. And you might think, well, but Inkscape can do pretty much everything except the animation part. And here the animation is not exactly what it seems. It cannot create an APNG, an animated PNG, or like we used in the previous episode, that third-party tool. Well, it was a website that could generate a CSS with the SVG to generate the animation. This one cannot even create a GIF, although GIFs are not very favorable. But it can do quite some amazing things, and we will get to those in just a moment. I just want to showcase what VCG software is going to do. This is the developer. Actually, there are two of them. And this guy also worked on in Pixar's animation studios, which is really nice. And he's gonna develop VCG Illustrator and animation. They're gonna work on Linux as well. Well, they develop for everything. And they give some examples here. This is gonna be paid, and I think this looks quite okay. Even the one-time thing looks quite okay for this software. They're very transparent, and they even say it's like, no, despite being sold as commercial product, which ensures sustainability of the project, VCG is proud to publicly develop to be publicly developed on GitHub under the Apache 2.0 open source license. Indeed, we believe that source code is knowledge, and we believe that knowledge is meant to be accessible to everyone for free. We also believe that users should have the freedom to modify the software they use. Finally, using VCG on Linux distributions is free of charge, although users are encouraged to buy a license or subscribe to one of our plans to support the project. And yeah, it's a really, really good approach to. I really, really appreciate people developers who offer, don't force people to pay for their product, and understand that if people invest in their product, they're gonna get far better results. And I've looked at, let's see, uh, this is how the software is going to look like. This is the illustration. I don't know how the animation looks like. Maybe this one. Yeah, I don't think they have an image. This is the second developer. And they were crowdfunding through Kickstarter, which they succeeded quite well. They needed 10,000, so they surpassed that. And they did quite well in my opinion. But let's have a look at the software itself. So, uh, the user interface leaves a lot to be desired. But then again, Inkscape had humble beginnings as well. But don't be fooled by the simplicity of these tools. They're quite advanced, although my only concern is that the documentation on their page is not very detailed, and some of these tools here are not very intuitive and can easily mislead you and think that they are broken. There is actually one function that I don't particularly know how to use correctly, though I found a workaround. And they also have the export for PNG, frame by frame, obviously, and SVG frame beta, which I'm not sure exactly what it does. Probably it's only for a specific type of uh, place that can read this type of SVGs, because when you open them in Inkscape, all the nodes that are common, and we're gonna get into that, uh, they get removed, and the frame animations here don't display there. I'm not entirely sure how it works. It also has layers. It's quite unique, and they approach vector design in a different way than Inkscape does, because it's more like sculpting than actually vector manipulating. So let's just get an idea. Actually, let me get my stylus. I haven't tested it with the stylus, so I'm curious as well how it works. Just a second. We need to select this. Oh, come on. It doesn't work. Hmm? What happened? Oh, we don't have a layer. So based on how much you push your stylus, there is pressure sensitivity. There is no delete, no erase tool. Although interestingly, there is a hard delete, which I don't know exactly why they need a hard delete, but it's there. So you can freely draw stuff. Although if you're only having a mouse, it's gonna be more painful in the sense that you cannot uh, edit nodes. So you can turn this, you can scale it if you wish, you can squish it, although there is no way to perfectly squish this anyway. And if you want to see the nodes quite easily, we have to change to this. We can also work with this one, but I'm gonna just use this. And then you can manipulate the nodes. Now, this is the part that gets tricky. So there are open paths and closed paths that close automatically when they're close enough, you see, like this, but they don't create a node. But you could technically create them manually, which is weird. I don't know how to explain it otherwise. Now, in order to smooth out, you have to press Shift if you want to increase or decrease the area of effect. You press Control and drag, and if you want to increase the well, actually not this one. If you want to increase the size of the paintbrush, I think. Ah, yeah, it's like this. It's a bit weird. I don't know how to explain it. The onion skin is this one, though you only use it for the keyframes. So for now, we're just gonna leave it like this. And you have to kind of play with the outlines here in order to get what you want to see everything. Otherwise, you have to kind of really zoom in, and it's not very intuitive. Let's just say, let's just call it that. Animation cycle editor. I'm not really sure how this works. This is for the background stuff. Layers if we want to work with different layers. But there is something very interesting. So when you're drawing, this one, obviously, if I disable it, let me just lower the size. More. So if I disable it, this one disables snaps, the snapping position of closing the path. But this one is very interesting. So what this one does, I'm gonna elaborate without it first. So if I draw a path like this, and then if I draw a second path like this, now if I select it, this path is separate from this path, correctly? Correct. But if I enable this and I do this, and now I do this, something interesting happens, you see? There is a connection here. Although I'm not sure exactly why this one creates a node here and this one doesn't have a node anywhere. It's, again, not very intuitive, very weird from this perspective. But what is even more weird is, like for example, we have this which is separated outside. Now we can move them Interesting. I don't know why that is there. Let's remove it. Now, this is sort of like a group in a way. And you can activate certain parts of it. It's a bit weird. Again, you sculpt it, you don't actually move it. I'm not entirely sure how you add more anchor points, more vertices. Sometimes it works when you're adding it with this, but sometimes it just adds this point, which I'm not entirely sure what this is supposed to be. It's not the same as this. So these two cannot be merged together. I'm not sure. It's not explained anywhere. But this option is extremely important when you're working like this. So for example, let's say I draw another shape like this inside. Now, if I'm gonna move, this seems to be independent from this. But, if I'm gonna come here, select the paintbrush, the paint bucket, sorry. Let's select a different color. Well, let's select something more suitable. This works a little like the shape tool in a way. I'm not sure exactly how to explain, but it colors the area, okay? So I can make it green here. Now, having this activated, if I draw, well, let's put a different color. You can also press C for the shortcut. So if I disable this, this is how it looks right now. I'm just gonna keep this activated. These are the different modes, but let's say we keep it like this. So now, if I am going to remove one of these, I'm gonna have a point over here. And you see now this point is attached here. Technically you should just do a normal click, but it applies this and I'm not sure why. Now, what is really, really cool is that if I take this point and I shift select this point, I can unite them like this. Obviously, it's going to combine them in the middle. But now, check this out. If I move this, this moves this as well. Now, if I do another shape over here, I need to, again, add fill with the bucket, then do another shape here, delete one of this, and now this with this, if we combine it or glue it, how it's called, this is called glue with G. Now if I select this face, although keep in mind if you select the edge and move it, it's gonna move like this, but if you select the surface, it moves all of it. I'm not entirely sure why and how, but that's how it works. So the same happens here. So you can have some very powerful designs. Now, what you can do here, for example, we select this node, okay? If I want to break it apart, I can just use this, and now everything in here becomes separated. Well, except this corner, obviously. So again, you have you have two lines, two borders, let's call them like this, and one path, and all combined into this node over here. Again, it's very weird that you can move this and this is independent, but if you move this, this is not. It's weird. I don't know. It's maybe sort of like a mask, and this point is attached to the mask. That's the only way I can correlate to Inkscape. But these things you cannot do in Inkscape. Now, here comes the magic. We can select everything, copy it with Control C, go to the last frame, and I'm gonna go animation, motion paste. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna just, you have to click and just move it a little bit like fast, because otherwise it has all of these things and you cannot do anything. You can sort of rotate it like this. It's quite interesting, but let's do these modifications like so, okay? And we can even change the shape if we want. An interesting thing is that if you press Alt, you can thicken an edge. Again, everything here, this path has many nodes. It's not actually a singular path. It's a bit strangely made. Okay, so I can do this, and I can also make this more thicker, but I can make it thinner on the top. Again, a lot of potential here. So now what's gonna happen if I go to the first one, and here's the cool thing, we can go to View, Advanced, and we go to 3D View, and we have this thing. I don't know if I can move it. Well, I'm just gonna leave it like this so you guys can see what I'm gonna do. So if I'm gonna press play, actually let me do this with the normal thing. So again, if I'm gonna press play, look at this. And this is a simple thing. And you can see in the 3D view how it goes in between these things. See, it shows you the layered options. Now, if you want to modify something in the middle, like right over here, you're gonna go here, animation, and keyframe selection, or press K. And now we can modify things in here. Otherwise, if we're going here, you can't. But if you go here and press K, now you can modify things. So for example, yeah, weird. I don't know what the hell. Maybe I need to select everything. Okay. I think now it should work. Yeah. So this makes the modification in the center. Now if I'm gonna press play, see it does this, which is really amazing. But that's not all. There is something even cooler. So I'm gonna just make a circle that's closing. Well, that's true. And then I'm gonna make a line. And what's gonna happen here is we're gonna have these segments. You see? But now let's make a separate which will not combine to this. So we're going to make this color. We're gonna make this circle like so. Well, it's not closed. And if we're gonna go like this, we see that this is on top, correctly? So this does not affect the shape beneath it. But what we can do is, for example, select this part. I don't know, can I change the color from here? Maybe from here. I'm not sure how you change the color of the, maybe this. Yeah. The UI is not very clear on what things are doing here and there. So I can select this, and you have depth. Now, depth works like I can erase this. But as you can see, it's not doing anything. But if I'm gonna go alternative raise, maybe I'm not doing it right. Okay, so alternative lower, you will see that this part of the circle stays on top of this, but this part of the circle goes underneath, goes over this. So this means, for example, if I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna come with this, I can do some very interesting things. So if I'm gonna select this and I'm gonna go depth, alternative, alternative. So right now it went underneath this. I'm not sure exactly how it goes. Oh, so it goes in little bits and pieces. So let's try to go with this one. There we go. It's again very weird, but look, it's like this is a ring that is half on top of this and half beneath this. And this whole thing, although I'm not sure why these are just fixed like this. Anyway, this is kind of like this, as you can see. This is on top, this is under. This is under, this is on top, this side. So you can create some really amazing effects. And for example, if you have, let's imagine this is a nose and these are glasses, you can have one side of the glasses behind the nose and the other side, and this just being one path over this surface of the face, you know. So you can create some 3D illusions really, really amazingly. You can do this in Inkscape as well, but it's, how should I say? It's more finicky because you have to do more steps. So from what I understand, the way they made the software is basically what happens in Inkscape is, for example, you have a shape like this. And right now there are only two nodes, right? But if you would have a shape like this, now you have three nodes. Now imagine that you have another shape. Oops, I'm too close. Imagine you have another shape like this. And in Inkscape, if you would want to overlap this with this, you can, because you can align them. Oh, that's the center. You can align them. There is no snapping tool here from what I have seen. And I mean for specific points. Maybe there is, but I'm not entirely sure. And then if you want to move them both, you have to select them both and then move. Obviously, it's not gonna work here. Probably because I have used... Oh, I didn't. So you would probably have to move them something like... Well, it's difficult to select them. Yeah, I'm not sure. This selection works kind of wanky. Maybe I need to zoom in a lot. Yeah. So you would have to move them both at the same time. Now, what happens in Inkscape, if you would want to do that, it would have to calculate the X and Y position for both of these. But what happens here is actually you can combine this node with this node into one particular node. It's called, I forgot, something with mapping something something something. I forgot the term. Anyway, so basically this creates a virtual anchor point between both of these points. Although there are two paths, it considers that all of them are combined into one singular path, let's call it. And there is an intermediary point that moves both of them at the same time. So instead of doing two calculations, it does only one. And you can imagine if you're gonna add even more points from here, although you need to select this like so, which is not possible in Inkscape. Then when we move this, it moves for all of them. Now, another cool thing is if we go here, uh, and let's say I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna go to the first frame and motion and path. And here we could maybe add a circle. Actually, no, let's do it the other way. Let's, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4. No? 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's do a circle and has 1, 2, 3, and well, maybe I'm doing it too complicated. Let's delete everything. New. I'm just gonna do something simpler. I'm gonna do a circle and I'm gonna do a line. Now I'm gonna go on the last one and I'm gonna do, well, let's make 2 lines. Or 1 line, whatever. So I'm gonna just do this and this. And now I'm gonna select this. I'm gonna push it somewhere here. And you can do this. You can select, I think you can select this. I'm trying to think. Maybe it's not the best solution. Let's try something different. Let's try without this. And let's move this somewhere here. Because if it's 2 halves, it's not gonna work. You can only select one element at a time. So I'm gonna select with this circle, then I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna select this center. And then I'm gonna go to animation, and in between selection. And this works like the old Adobe Flash. I don't know if you guys remember Adobe Flash, but it was something similar. And the cool thing is that now I can select this and go to this and select the same animation in between selection. It's not gonna show anything for us. We just have to trust the software in between selection. And now I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna press play. It's gonna transform like this. And we can go backwards as well. Let me look at the normal one. There we go. Really, really awesome. Of course, is there a way to play, pause? There is no way to rewind. That would have been cool. But it has a lot, and I mean a lot of potential to do a lot of things. One other thing, I'm gonna just delete this. New. Again, these are not very intuitive. So I'm gonna have this disabled, so they're gonna be different paths. So if I'm gonna create two circles, these are independent from each other. They're not connecting their paths over here. But if I select them both, and if I click this, this happens. And it's, again, a little bit weird. Because this goes inside. You can make it smaller. Now, you could argue that you could add this inside here, but as you see, this is a hole, right? I can select this with the surface, not the edge, and it would combine them. So now, right now, this is a filled circle. If I select again the edge with this, I can make a hole. I should have worked. I'm not even sure anymore. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. It's not very straightforward. So again, if I'm gonna do this and fill it, and if I'm gonna do now with this one enabled, if I'm gonna do something like this, I can select the center and I can press delete and it's gonna create a hole inside here. Although it's a clipping mask in a way. I don't know, it's a bit weird. And I'm not entirely sure how you remove the width of the border, because it's not showing anywhere. I didn't see a way to create only a shape, a surface. So you need to create the outline and then fill it. Although you could technically, not entirely sure, but I think you could technically, no, it's not working. It's not working like in Inkscape, like you can have an open border and fill it inside. So that's that. And the last thing is that, for example, if I have something like this, oops, whoa. I don't know how I did that. Yeah, well, maybe it was a bug, I'm not sure. So if you have something like this, now we have 3 points. This one can either be separated like this and we create two segments, or we can remove it with this. This one, I really scratched my head a little because I didn't fully understand it. And now you have this and you can sculpt it with this. And if you want to make it straight, you just press Shift and do something like this. Of course, you have to have the range to cover it all. So that's about it about this software. It's quite interesting in many ways. It has a lot of potential. But again, it's kind of limiting in many ways. You can't control the curvature of your curves very well after you drew them, and finicking with this tool is gonna be a bit painful because it constantly creates extra extra vertices in between, which you cannot see. You can only see these anchor points. So yeah, that's a big limitation. You can do some S curves if you want, but it's kind of a pain. They're not gonna look very attractive. Although you can move back back and front between Inkscape and this software because it works with SVGs. One little thing to take into account is like if you do this, you're gonna have one shape and without any nodes for some reason. But if you do this, you can have shapes, nodes in between. Oops. I just want to show you something really cool. Let's make a 3D plane here. Oops. So now I can select them and I can go and select this with this and combine them with this, although it's weird because it doesn't say it combines these lines. It only specifies that it's for node, but it works for lines as well and for surfaces as it's kind of weird. So I can press G and combine them, and then I can select this with this, and again press G, and ta-da! We have an intermediary line between these three planes, and then you can just go and weird. Did I not? I did use that. I'm not entirely sure how this should work and why it's not coloring what I'm telling it to color. Again, they did say there are limitations. And if you want to enable, like right now, we don't have onion. So if you want to go with onion, just select the onion version. Oh, sorry, it does work. I'm just silly. It was in that format. Weirdly enough, maybe there are some openings here somewhere. It cannot calculate. Crazy. Anyway, so if we enable the onion, when we go to the next frame, we can still see our things, although it's a bit annoying because you see them in full color. So if the opacity would have been lower, like you have it in Blender, for example, it would have been better. So now we can just draw if we want our shapes like this. I'm just exemplifying. And you can do like animations frame by frame. Although, yeah, it is a bit tedious. But again, interesting aspect. The only thing I really would have wished in this software is if they would have had the possibility Why can't I see it? Oh, come on, now I cannot see. Oh, I'm not in the frame. If they would have had the possibility for the center point, for the origin point, to remain saved where I moved it last for each individual object. And that is because when you're working with animations, to you want some constraints for rotation, and you would want those fixed somewhere. So right now, this not being fixed is a big problem. But what can we do? So again, if we want to attach this to this, we would have to go in here, do a line on this. Oops, not that much. Remove one of them. And now this one for some reason is attached inside. And now this one with this one. Bam. Super, super duper cool. You can do some nifty things here. And they have some examples, but again, not intuitive how you can work with some of these things. Like right now I'm making it a straight line, and if I do it like this, it's again, it's quite finicky. I did see an interesting thing, like unfortunately there is no shape tool, so we have to do everything by hand. This is weird. So for example, if you would want to make a square as perfect as possible, you'd have to use shift. Oh, damn it. Oh, there is no forward? Oh, there is a redo. It's Control Y. Sorry. We'd have to use shift and straighten them. Although it would help if there would be an align option. So I can align this perfectly. But yeah, well, we get what we get. So you can align them manually afterwards, which is kind of over the top. And then you can affect the entire thing here. If you press shift, you're going to be locked directionally. Although I kind of prefer control rather than shift. But anyway. And weirdly enough, it affects the entire thing as well, which can create some really cool animations, especially if you can go like this. And you can, they said like you can do some blurring things, especially in the more advanced one, you'll have more options. It's very potential. I personally think Inkscape should have a take to try to simulate this, some of the aspects that this software does, especially snapping points to a surface, which is wow. And creating three-dimensional or multi-dimensional points and lines is quite breathtaking. Although again, it's difficult to control. For some reason, the center point of this is all the way here. Maybe it's because it combines this with this. No, sorry, I'm just looking. I was selecting something else. My mistake. Again, weird way to do a user interface because this one is still selected and I can move this. It should deselect this. Again, I'm not trying to be snappy here or moody, but it's not intuitive. They should definitely, maybe if they look at this video, they would get a bit of feedback. Hopefully. But I really, really love it. It's quite a unique software. It has a lot of things that you can play. Obviously, not all the tools that you find. I still have no idea what you do here. Having multiple layers here becomes quite um, cluttered, and I don't know. It's gonna take a lot of things. It's difficult to navigate some things, and but the more you play with it, the more you start to like the UI because of its simplicity. There are settings which you can do for the animation here. Uh, you have loop, bounce. Oh, I didn't try loop. And I don't know what bounce is. They do give you some information. Okay, whatever. And I don't, they say there is create in between faces, which I haven't tested. I'm not exactly sure how it goes. Probably if you have two surfaces, it's gonna create more surfaces in between that change from a square to a different, maybe to a triangle. Let's test it actually. But let's make this a little smaller. I don't know exactly what this other line is. Probably for snapping, snap threshold. Yeah, probably. Ah, yeah, I see what they do. So basically, how large the snap threshold is, that's where you will get the snapping. So if we go here and we put something like this, and we go here and we do some, oh, my mistake. We do something like uh, this. Well, whatever, something like this. Now, technically, if I select the surface from this and this, create in between faces. No? Nothing? Well, I don't know how to use that function. There is no... Let me try again. No, nothing. I suppose we have to select the object itself from the frame. Yeah. What can you do? And let's do settings. What is bounce? Subframe in betweening. Whatever. Oh, bounce, it goes back and forth. Ah, actually it does have a rewind. That's cool. So that looks really, really cool. Unfortunately, it does not apply the... Yeah, something happens to the faces here. Let's see, maybe now it works. If we select the face from this, with the face from this, and animation create in between faces. Now, perhaps I don't know how to use this function, but again, really, really amazing software. And this is just a simple animation. Of course, we can maybe, I don't know if you can move a frame, but maybe you can copy it somewhere else, and or you can change the number of frames here. We can do loop, subframe, subframe in betweening. Yeah, I'm not sure. Still quite interesting. And again, I'm not at selected cells. But it did add something. I don't know what to do with this. Animated cycle editor. You cannot select it. Ah, well, what can you do? Click selected highlighted object, click the background and select all. Hold Control Shift or Alt for more options. Ugh. Lots of things. But I really enjoy playing with this. And perhaps this also are skin speakable. Yeah, they did quite a bit of prototyping, but they didn't give a lot of helpers or intuitive actions for players for users to know what they're working with. Although after a while, after testing, trial and error, you kind of get the hang of it. I'm still trying to understand it myself, and I've picked most of this trick by watching the the presentation. It was an hour-long presentation or so of the software, and he showed some tricks in there, and I kind of uh, stole some of his techniques because he doesn't show everything directly on the screen. But yeah, when he explains it, it is a bit more interesting. I don't know why this one doesn't do anything. Change edge width. Okay. Oh. I see. So that's where it was hidden. Lol. Quite interesting. Yeah, and this one is for the edge, and this one is for the edge and the background. Ah, it's weird. It's weird. Well, I can see it's weird. And then you can change the surface from here. Oh, you can't? I thought you could. Again, weird. You can also add some images, which I did not quite get. Probably is for the background itself. But although it does say for the background, so probably it only applies to the background. Although I don't understand why I cannot make a full repeat, hold opacity 1. Yeah, weird. Anyway, I'm not gonna bother you guys with more things that I'm still scratching at this. But it is quite interesting to keep around, maybe in future developments when they said they're gonna release it towards the end of 2023, uh, those two softwares. So keep an eye on them, and hopefully they will be more intuitive than this. And maybe we can actually do some cool animations. Uh, Maybe if they even add more constraints, and maybe it's gonna be far more easier than doing it in Inkscape, the animation, the preparing for the animation. But what I really suggest to you guys is, like, for example, you prepare all the shapes, because here it's quite difficult to control the shapes. So you control you. It's nice to do it with a stylus, but again, it's problematic if you want perfect edges. So you prepare them, and then you come here and open the SVG, and then you combine the edges that you want, which shouldn't take long. You glue them, and then you do the animation and morph it and You can do so many cool things. Imagine how many elements you can do with text if you really want to. And again, keep an eye on this option with the export into SVG format for frame. Again, I'm not sure how it works because I did try to export it and I have selected every frame and everything. When you, at least when you export it in PNG, it asks you if you want to do it like in layers, but in this one, it doesn't give you any option. So again, maybe somebody who has the knowledge to read through an SVG, the code of the SVG, should open it and maybe they can come with a better solution to how you can manipulate that to maybe use code directly into the SVG to animate it. If it's possible, I have no clue. Or using third-party tools like CSS or JavaScript or whatever to kind of manipulate the code in the frames of this SVG to do something like it's here. It would be really awesome. Okay, I've been excited enough for 1 hour. I think that's more than enough to pick apart this tiny software from all sides. And hope you guys found it as interesting as I did. And I'll catch you in the next episode. Stay awesome. Bye, 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 bye.